Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, to our students all over the world who will be hearing this tape, I will tell you that this is February 20th and that some of our students from the island of Maui and some from Oahu have met out here at our home, Halekou, for this meditation and refreshment, and to receive that which unfolds from the infinite storehouse, the infinite invisible. As usual, we have preceded our work with a meditation, because meditation is the foundation of all infinite way work. The reason must be clear in your mind, otherwise you will eventually come to look on meditation as just another ritual or ceremony, and then it will degenerate into a physical practice or even a mental practice instead of fulfilling its spiritual function. You must understand, first of all, that truth cannot be imparted. No, I won't say that. Truth cannot be taught, and truth cannot be learned. Truth can only be imparted, but it can never be imparted through words or thoughts. It can only be imparted from silence, through silence. Truth which is taught is an intellectual exercise that results in the gaining of more knowledge, but not the attaining of spiritual consciousness. The attaining of spiritual consciousness is an experience, and it's an experience that can come only through silence or meditation. Now, the one who has attained some measure of spiritual illumination can, by going into meditation or the silence, become so still that the infinite invisible can flow out to the consciousness of the student, that is, to those who are ready for the experience, and can bring to them the experience of illumination or realization. It is in this way that our work resembles that of Zen. Zen Buddhism is also founded on the principle that you cannot teach anyone truth by speaking to them. You can only impart it to them by your own degree of illumination. Now, when it comes, it's a sudden experience, although the preparation leading up to it may take many, many years. A person may study truth with the mind and may meditate, and years may go by in which they seem to be making little or no progress. Actually, from the very first moment that they seriously turned to the attainment of realization, their progress was rapid. But it isn't noticeable because Well, it would be like removing that mountain. From the first shovelful that you took away, you would be making progress in removing the entire mountain. But when you look at how many shovels full of earth and stone are there, you will know that it'll be a long time before it will be apparent that you are making progress in removing that mountain. And if you ever witness the density of the human selfhood, you will then know that you are moving a mountain of density, a mountain of ignorance. And though your progress begins with your first serious meditation, it will not become too evident for quite a while. And then all of a sudden it comes in a flash. Now, everything must be understood to emanate from the within to the without, so that everything that you are aware of by seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, or smelling is but an emanation or an extension of an invisible consciousness. I've just been reading the meaning of this figure here, which you will recognize to be that of Hotai, H-O-T-A-I, Hotai, the god of joy, and often referred to as the god of prosperity. Now, as you look at it with your eyes, all you behold is a very happy, fat man, undoubtedly well-dressed from those flowing robes, and with his beads and ornament around his neck, so that, judging outwardly, you have nothing but a happy fat man wearing beads. Actually, that is symbolic of a divine state of consciousness externalizing itself as joy, prosperity, and a religious sense. The beads indicate the religious consciousness. The robes and the well-being indicates the prosperity and, of course, his fatness. And the joy on his face shows the nature of his state of consciousness. Now, just imagine then that instead of looking at that figure and seeing a figure, you are seeing a state of consciousness externalized in that particular form. But without the particular state of consciousness, that form would not be that way. In other words, if the beads weren't there, there'd be a complete absence of the spiritual or religious sense. If those robes or that fatness weren't there, there would be no sense of prosperity. So it is. Every individual can be known because that which he shows forth in his face and in his body and in his purse or in his home really is the externalization of his consciousness. Now, a human being, even a good human being, may show forth goodness and morality and prosperity and still be showing forth only the animal nature. That same individual, when he has been touched by the religious or spiritual light, shows forth a religious or spiritual sense of being, which is entirely different even than a good human being. And that is symbolized by the beads. But it may also be symbolized by a halo. In Christian mysticism, instead of the beads, we have the halo to indicate that here is an individual on earth, yet spiritually illumined. Also, that is indicated by a light or glow in the face, or shining forth from the eyes. But unless you understand this, you do not perceive that that which you are witnessing is a state of consciousness being externalized. Now, within you is the entire kingdom of God. That means within you is the entire kingdom of immortality, eternality, virtue, prosperity, harmony, health, wholeness, completeness, fulfillment. In your human selfhood, you can never bring that forth, because you can only make use of what Jesus called bread alone, effects with which to build yourself up, but you don't have cause. Also, as Jesus indicated, since you are a branch cut off from the tree, regardless of how wonderful your appearance is, at any moment you are withering. And sometime before, during, or after 70 years and 10, you will be completely withered. Now, from the moment that the branch, you, the human being, learns to make contact with the tree, which I am, from that moment on, you are not merely drawing on bread, water, meat, wine. You are now drawing on the source of bread, water, meat, wine. You are drawing not only on the invisible, but on the infinite and the eternal. And so it is that only in meditation can you accomplish the return to the Father's house, the prodigal returning to the Father's house. The human being is the prodigal in the world. The contact made in meditation is returning to the source, the Father's house. And then the royal robe and the jeweled ring come forth. Now, in meditation, the ego or personal sense of I is still. It is not claiming power, understanding, wisdom. On the contrary, it is taking an attitude of humility. The very moment that you close your eyes and become silent, it is as if you were to say, well, I certainly am insufficient. Incomplete, inharmonious. And so now I have to turn to that which is greater than I, the source of my being, the fountain, the storehouse. And so by my stillness I indicate my humility. By taking the attitude, here I am, Father. Speak, Lord. Thy servant heareth. This is the supreme humility. Ordinary prayer makes one superior to God because it tells God what it wants and usually when it wants it. Prayer is setting up the ego because it dares to try to influence God on one's own behalf or on behalf of another. In other words, making oneself superior to God in knowledge, wisdom, and love. But This silence of meditation is saying, "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth." I do not ask you to serve my purpose, to do my will or my wish or my bidding. I am thy servant. Do with me. Thy will be done in my earthly experience. Teach me, feed me, direct me. Thou art closer to me than breathing. Thou knowest my needs. It is thy good pleasure to give me the kingdom. Therefore I wait. And this is the true humility. And in this waiting, a vacuum is created. The ego departs. The personal sense of self with its desires, wishes, hopes, ambitions, all fades away. And now there is room for that transcendental spark, that illumination from within, to take place. When you are in the presence of one who has attained some measure of that illumination, and you are in an atmosphere of humility, the spark will touch you. It may not touch you and open you at the moment that you desire it, but it will definitely do this for you in the moment of your readiness for it, because there must be a preparation. There must be purification. There must be humility before the Spirit of the Lord God can be upon you. Every master has found that there are some students who come quickly to the illumination, and some who wait and wait and wait and wait before it eventually arrives. And it may even be that for some it will not come in this incarnation. Where two or more are gathered together in my spirit, in my name, in this nature, there too the enlightenment can come. This is the way of infinite way impartation. Through the letter of the message, you are learning how and what must be accomplished to bring about humility and purification. By your meditation, you are preparing the groundwork for that state of vacuum, that state of servanthood, into which the Father can come, the Spirit, and give light. The harmonies that appear in your life as either spiritual progress, physical health, economic security, safety in storms, strife, or even wars, all of this comes as the outpicturing, as the outward manifestation of an inner glory. And the inner glory is only attained in stillness, in quietness, in confidence, in peacefulness. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Acknowledge him in all thy ways, and he will give thee peace. Only in that realization that within you, closer than breathing, is this infinite, invisible, forever pouring itself forth, and in that vacuum of humility, the Spirit of the Lord God can be upon you, and then outwardly your life changes. Your human relationships change. Your nature changes. Your health changes. Sometimes even your physical form changes. Your appearance changes. But only because that change is the outer manifestation of this inner glory, this inner light, which you have attained by contact with the Father within. The branch being reestablished with the tree, the prodigal returning to the Father's house. It is for this reason, then, that the truth you learn through the books or the recordings, these are but instruments leading you back to meditation, to where within yourself you make contact with that spirit which now takes over your life. And in Christian mysticism it is given, I live, yet not I, Christ liveth my life. And in the Tao, or Taoism of China, it is taught that you do not live by virtue of your own being, but by Tao. And in Japan it is taught that you do not learn Zen, you experience Zen, and then Zen manifests itself as your experience. So you see why all of the writings bring to light not only the need for, but the practice of meditation. Why especially we have the books, The Art of Meditation and Practicing the Presence, to keep our thoughts stayed on God, to keep our thoughts stayed on meditation until that Spirit takes over. In our work, I have been promising you this for several years, and each year I have told you it has not yet come. I have not been able to fulfill my promise that the day will come when I will be able to lead you, and it should be this year, to the actual experience through meditation, after which you will know that you are consciously lived by a presence within you, that which is greater than yourself and yet is yourself, your real self, your spiritual self. We will meditate again. Remember that your attitude in meditation, whether you are meditating for yourself or for another, is not that you exercise any power, even to heal anyone. That is never your intent. Your intent in meditation is to be the transparency through which God, or the light, performs its work, not you. There is no room in spiritual living for ego, or egotism, or personal powers. None whatsoever. You do not meditate so as to exercise power for yourself or for another. You meditate to bring forth that humility which permits God to function through you and as you, whether for yourself or for another. You are never the doer. You are never the actor. You are always the vacuum. I can of my own self do nothing. I am of my own self nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. If I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. My doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. I and my Father are one, but the Father is greater than I. Therefore, our function when we go into meditation is not to exercise power, not to believe that we have power for good, but rather that we are a transparency or instrument through which the divine can manifest itself, express itself, and perform its mighty functions on earth as it does in heaven. We are the instruments. We were sitting here one night in my office, late. I was dictating mail. The telephone call came in from the mainland for help for a very, very serious situation. And I said to Emma, I will work here and you go inside and meditate. And she did, and the voice spoke to her and said, get your Bible. And then the voice spoke again and told her the very chapter and verse of the Bible. And when she read, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And when we had a cable the next morning, we were told that at that instant, release came. Now, there was no power exercised by me or by Emma. There was a relaxing from power and a waiting on the Lord until the voice spoke. And then we learn in Scripture, he uttered his voice, the earth era melted. So it is. Never believe that you have personal powers or by your spiritual endowments that you will ever get personal power, spiritual power, for you will not. God does not give his power to another. God does not give his glory to another. The power, the glory, the dominion always remain in God. We are but humble instruments or servants, transparencies through which that may appear. There is only one reason why sin, disease, death, wars, lack, limitation remain on earth. And that is that God can only find entrance to the world through consciousness. Not through the air, through consciousness. Now, when we sit here in humility and are attuned to consciousness, our consciousness is open for the presence and power of God to enter. Naturally, then, the presence and power of God is going to dispel hate, envy, jealousy, malice, bias, bigotry, greed, lust, etc., etc. But supposing we weren't thinking of God or opening our consciousness to God, but each one was busy about his own business of getting, how would God find entrance into this room? And the answer is God wouldn't. Now always remember this. God can only enter this world through consciousness. And it must be the consciousness of an individual, one or more. In other words, there was just as much God in the world before Moses, but it had no effect upon the Hebrew people until Moses opened his consciousness, received the light, and then was led by God, and the liberation of the Jews took place. In other words, God was there, but there was no Moses consciousness open to receive and release God into the world. In the same way, there was just as much God on earth before Jesus. But it was only when a Jesus appeared and God consciousness could flow through him that the blessings took place, not only then, but unto all time. In the same way, here were these many benighted so-called spiritual teachers and masters of India, and yet nothing happening in the way of spiritual illumination until along comes Gautama. And with 21 years of searching and effort and praying and seeking, he finally is led to where he too, in all humility, sits under a tree and waits. And then, into and through his illumined consciousness came that light which has become Buddhism and has performed in many forms its functions in India, in Tibet, in China, and Japan. Whatever of spiritual light has come into those countries, remember, came or stemmed forth from the illumination of Gautama, without which none of the rest would have taken place. You see? In the same way, as Buddhism was carried across into China and later Japan in the form of Zen, it was the consciousness of an individual whom we know as Bodhidharma. That individual whose consciousness is opened becomes the light, and then becomes the light unto the rest of that particular world. So it is. Mothers sit by the bedside of their sick and dying children and pray, 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 and nothing happens unless a doctor comes along who can do something. But a spiritual practitioner comes into that room, gets silent for a few moments, and our child is well. See that? In the same way, every spiritual healing that you have witnessed, and I know you've witnessed many, every one has been the result of what? One individual sitting in the silence, quietly, peacefully waiting, and then the Spirit came through the consciousness of that one. The voice uttered itself, the earth melted. And so you will find in your experience that you are that one, that Moses, that Gautama, that Buddha, that Bodhidharma, in proportion as you learn to be nothing, to be still, and to let that light act in you and through you and as you. You will someday find that when this world comes to the place of solving its problems by meditation instead of by arms, by the sword, that the Spirit will so illumine every situation that there will be no need for the knife or the pistol. And on that point, we're going to talk about this for a moment, because this indicates really our ultimate dream. February 1959, we have this monthly letter, which is a lesson to Sammy, and a school teacher in the 7th grade read this letter in the classroom and then asked the students to write papers on what they had learned or what they had gained from the reading of this letter. And please note, the letter was merely read to them, and from then on it was in their own laps. And just see what took place, not through long study of it, not through a long practice of it, just from a reading of it in the minds of these 7-year-old children. These that I am reading now are the actual papers turned in by the children in their own handwriting. Sammy's letter. I thought it was good because it told Sammy that God was always beside him and what he should do every day. I thought Sammy's letter was very interesting. It showed us that God is always with us. It also tells that we can tackle almost any problem if we communicate with God. I think the letter was very interesting, and it taught me many things about our God. When I go home today, I am going to try what the letter said, and I am hoping to meet him. I think that the letter to Sammy was to show him never to feel that you are alone, for God is always with us. I thought it was good because it talked about God and what we should do. I gained that you not only have to pray and talk, but you can just tell it in your own mind. This is a good letter because it talks about God and how to ask for forgiveness and help. When you are lost, you could call on God for help. This tells you to believe in God always, whether you are in trouble or not. I like this very much, and that everyone should believe in God. The story is very interesting because it tells how to worship God and to have wisdom in him. The story will help me when I have a problem or am in trouble. I think the letter Sammy received was a very interesting one. It showed that God is always with you when you work and play. It was a very interesting letter telling how you should face up to God and always believe in him. You should love others as they do unto you. I thought it was good because it taught Sammy and everyone else that God is near you. When you are in trouble, sit down and shut your eyes and pray to God, and you won't be in trouble. What I thought about this letter was that if you had a problem, sit still and close your eyes, for God is with you and will help you in time of trouble. I thought that Sammy's letter made a lot of sense, and that you don't have to be afraid, because when you close your eyes and put your feet down, God comes into your heart. I think Sammy's letter was very interesting. He talks about the ways of loving God and that God is closer to your heart than your breath. I thought that the letter contained a great spiritual message, that God is with you always and knows all your wants and needs. I also liked the manner in which it was written. It was friendly and understanding. I thought the letter to Sammy was of great help to everyone, and I think people should try to do what that letter says. I think Sammy's a very lucky person to have such a friend. And the teacher makes a note on this one, that this child is a poor speller. Ordinarily, every word is spelled incorrectly. This was a complete surprise to me when I saw a paragraph without any errors. It taught me to love God better than ever before. It was interesting and good. It came to the depth of my heart. It was the part where Sammy was told to meditate when he had any trouble. I enjoyed listening to the letter. It taught me a lot of things. It taught me to appreciate God. and whenever I had time I should close my eyes and thank God for what he gave us. I enjoyed this letter very much because it's a very interesting one. This letter is interesting because it taught me many things about God. God can help us even without us praying. If we can pray 3 or 4 times a day, that's wonderful. It shows we ask God to help us every day. We can trust God. I thought the story was very nice and very encouraging. I think if anyone will try the idea suggested, they would be very happy and soon would probably find that God is a very good friend to know. I enjoyed the story very much. I have learned a lot of things from this letter. I shall try to follow these 3 wonderful helpers. 1, put your feet on the floor. 2, close your eyes. 3, be comfortable. Whenever I need help, I will turn to God and to no one else. God cannot be seen, he cannot be heard if you have no faith. But if you have faith, he will always be in your soul and always be with you. I think this letter is very helpful to everyone. I enjoyed the letter to Sammy very much. It has taught me a lot of what God can do for you. It has also taught me that if I were to meditate for at least 4 times a day, God will bless and help me to meet any challenge I might have to face. This letter to Sammy encouraged me to have faith in God. It tells us that we have someone who's watching over us and taking care for us. This letter helps us to believe that there is only one God, and that this God is a living God and not a dead God who helps us. This letter should be read to other people of other lands, that they too may become to believe in this God. And this child is a follower of the full gospel faith. I think the letter to Sammy was a very beautiful one. I'm sure Sammy would accomplish a lot by doing as his father had suggested, that when you are alone or in trouble, just close your eyes, put your feet on the floor, be still, be comfortable, and God will always be in your presence and help you always. God will always lead you if you believe in him and know him with all your heart. I thought of this letter as a very important one which all should follow. This is because everyone has troubles and don't know what to do about them. This one letter might help a great deal. Just by closing your eyes, as it said in the letter, thanking God, and by respecting others, you are doing a great deed, which will help you as well as others. God knows what is right as well as what is wrong. You might be able to stop your sinning if you believe enough in him. I thought that this letter, which Sammy received from his father, gave some good advice. I learned from it that just closing your eyes for a few minutes, we can hear God. God is like a radio station broadcasting his thoughts to us. He is within us and will help us in our daily problems if we give him love, joy, and respect. If we are sick and need help, we should rest for a moment and ask God to forgive us. And we must remember that God is available every minute. All we have to do is close our eyes and listen to him. Now, don't you think that's remarkable? The 7th grade, don't you? I think that it is simply wonderful. And above all this, that not one of these children had their own religion questioned. Not one felt that they had been incorrectly taught at home or that their religion was wrong. Not one of them felt that they were being taught some strange religion. There isn't one single letter in there that couldn't have been a letter from a Christian, a Jew, a Buddhist, or anything else. And all religious teachings were, you might say, overstepped in the realization of just the word God. Just the word God was in every single letter there, in every single heart, every single mind, every single consciousness. Now, think what happens if that many children accept the fact that God can help them in every problem, and that only by closing their eyes and turning within that God becomes available to them. Do you see what happens, that by the time they're adults, they couldn't have a mess like the House of Representatives yesterday? Do you see that? Because instead of fighting for self, they would see it's a problem and turn within for a solution, and they'd receive it. Well, actually, we, in teaching adults, are teaching children, because they are all children in truth. Very few know that the entire secret of the religious life, of bringing God into your world, is not how much you go to church, or how much church work you do, or how many ceremonies you go through, but to what extent you have learned, let us call it the word omnipresence. How much you have learned that the place whereon I stand is holy ground, that I and the Father are one wherever I am, in a ship at sea, or a plane in the air, or submarine under the sea. Where I am, God is. And then the ability to bring this humility. If I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. God does not impart its glory to another. God does not give his glory to another. Therefore, don't try to be spiritually powerful. Be spiritually humble. And let God's grace perform its functions through you or as you. You are not the actor, the doer. You are the transparency. God functions through consciousness, as consciousness. God functions through individual consciousness, and that becomes your consciousness when you have learned to meditate and to be still. Be still and know that I am God. And here you have the profound secret. Each one of you can say I. Therefore, each one of you knows that I am at the center of your being. Now you know that I am God. Therefore, be still. Be still because I am God. And I know your need before you ask it. And it is my good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And so we come to what has always been a mystery in the Christian religion. And that is the meaning of my peace give I unto you. The peace that passeth understanding. Now, my peace can come only from me. That means from I. And therefore, when you are still, I, in the center of your being, am with you. And I go before you to make the crooked places straight. I go to prepare a place for you. And my peace give I unto you. And I am your bread and your wine and your water. I am your resurrection. Even if you are sick unto death, I am your resurrection. Only be still and know that I am that. Be still. No matter how sick you seem to be still. And let I in the midst of you perform its functions. You will find that I am your bread, wine, water, meat. I am the resurrection. I am your life eternal. Rest in me. Be still and let I function. And so we will meditate on that. As a rule, when we meditate, It is because we're going to God. We have a problem, maybe physical, mental, moral, financial, maybe business, maybe human relationships. We usually have some kind of a problem, and we go in because we know that in our meditation we will get a solution. But we must not forget that there must be one period at least every day in which we meditate without any problems, neither for ourselves nor for others. Sometimes in our meditations we don't always go because we have our own problems, but we go for our patients or for our students. But there must be at least one period every day when you do not go into meditation for a patient or a student or even for any problem concerning yourself, when you go only for the pure experience of meditation. That is the richest experience of all, because it is in that experience that the graces come forth about which you have no knowledge, about which you could never dream, which you could never plan for yourself at all. And it is then that the spiritual riches begin to pour forth, but in forms that the human could never ask for himself or dream or think of. It is in this period that we can really say, "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth," and I'm not telling you what I'd like to hear either. And then as we feel that presence, something takes place within us that will have an externalization of a far different nature than anything we ever thought of or dreamed of. We really don't know what God can give to those who love God. We really don't know the extent of spiritual blessings. We only know the things that we already humanly know about. But we have no idea of those things that we cannot dream about. And it is for that reason then that we go as if we were going into a newly discovered land, not knowing what we were going to find when we get there. Maybe all wild beasts, but then there may be lots of gold and silver and diamonds and jade too. And we don't know. We're going into unexplored territory during this at least one meditation period per day, when we don't know where we're going or why, except that we know we're going into meditation to be receptive and responsive to that still small voice. It is then that you learn principles that you never knew before, and that no one ever taught you, and that perhaps may never have been revealed before. Or you may bring forth compositions of music, melodies that have never been heard on earth, or gems of art or literature or healing, whatever direction your life work is taking you. For that reason we have this wonderful passage, "Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things." No outlining there, just thy grace. And then God's grace takes the form necessary to our human completeness and fulfillment. All right, we're closing until 1 o'clock tomorrow, and thank you.